death from its rightful victory. No one can defeat me. I am glad to plunge feet first into hell, in the knowledge that I will rise. Back now again, this is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions, Blue Flame, Healing Arts, and Occult Science. And I am here for part 2 of the Magi, Grail, Shaman, Legend of Artorius segment. As now, like I have said, I'm going to start getting into what the Grail of Consciousness actually is. For you as the listener, if you haven't checked out our services page in context to initiation into the Blue Flame, Healing Arts, and Occult Science, I'm going to highly encourage you to do so at blackearthproductions.com. For those that want to inquire, send me an email at blackearthproductions@hotmail.com. And so now to move further into this segment and recap upon what we touched upon. What I ended up being able to share was a very unique dissertation in context to the legend of Artorius. If you haven't seen the segment that was uploaded before this one, that's what I'm going to encourage you to do even before getting into this one. Because it is a lot that I went over, and it's going to need to be gone over again many, many times in order to get the full spectrum perception that's in alignment with what I am unveiling in these specific segments. And now to move deeper into what the Grail of Consciousness actually is. This is in reference to the 12 universal signet stargates of consciousness that are held within the Universal Planetary Templar Complex. The original human race, Magi, Grail, Shaman, held the sacred commission to not only wield them, but to protect them. Our quest started long before the dark Luciferian seeding ever took place here on Earth in context to the Sumerian Draconian Empire, which has been the primary theme of motivation behind 99.9% of all of the dark occult recorded distorted human history and inverted systems of magic that spread forth like a fucking virus into our reality field. The wars that took place between Egypt and Samaria, in turn, all goes back to the Brotherhood of the Snake and the Thothian sect specifically, ended up compromising the 11th pillar given way to Solar Stargate 4. As I said in the Jedi Codes of the Narmangu, that there was a wormhole ripped open in Sakura, Egypt. And this all goes back to what I am getting at here in context. Falling into that which is forbidden because of its consequence. And as part of everything that took place among the wisdom councils with the left wing and right wing brotherhoods. As far as everything else, that's when it comes into religion and all of the false belief systems in context to domination and control. It all goes back to the cause point of the effect that everyone is dealing with to the human condition. See, it's not the effect that's the cause. It's the cause that's the effect. It's the cause which produces the effect. And those that are affected upon here in context are the infected. And ain't none of them got the real, knowing what I know about things. See, in truth, it goes much deeper than one has been led to believe, let alone what they have been given the opportunity and access again to what is beyond it all. But you got to do the real fucking work, you guys. That is what this is all about. That is how this works. Working to get access to the actual Grail of Consciousness. And we are working as well to reconstruct the Universal Planetary Templar Complex. And with recalibration technologies, realizing again that we are the true technology in connection to the pillars also held within the Universal Planetary Templar Complex. All other racial timelines are in true governance with the planetary councils there. In other words, the ancient wisdom councils. So the goal with everything is to not just to see it as it was, but into how it actually is in the face of the distortion fields, here in Midgard past it all. What the fuck are you actually going to be able to do about it? See, that's what this is all about. And in order to reconstruct the original planetary core Templar complex, again, it starts with you. It's also to know and see that it's never been fully destroyed, only layered over. And with the technologies we create, we will forth the timelines under the Timeline Collective as humanity to potentially progress and develop the needed energies to hold and sustain the higher frequencies of consciousness of the original racial timelines. This is what catching up the soul cycles is all about, which is going to potentially lead up to the great transition and all of the changes that are going to unfold, moving into the greater transition, which is due to be complete in 2065. So when I said earlier last year that when we got our timeline in September of 2017, this is what I was referring to. See, the fact is that we have full jurisdiction to do the work that will transform the bio-DNA and be able to hold and be able to sustain the original planetary energies, first on the solar spiral, then the galactic, and potentially the universal. And we are meant to be the masters of our bio-DNA and must be doing the real work in context to the art and science of alchemy, the bio-spiritual regenesis. See, after 2025, the reconstruction technologies are going to amp up the grid works and timelines we are a part of in an ultra-powerful way. And if we are not in the process of becoming the masters of ourselves, even while dealing with fragmented consciousness and all the fucked up shit that is going on here, seeing it for what it is, knowing how to overcome, integrating back into the original with the bio-DNA. If we are not in process with this, we are not going to be able to lift these energies that are going to continue to come in through us. And if humanity cannot break the chains and seals of the mental and emotional bodies being manipulated by the Dark Ones from the lower astral grid works of consciousness, all of the four main timelines that are playing out right now are going to go into fucking evaporation. And see, in context to what I'm saying, this is the result of what real death will bring when essence is evaporated into space dust on a multidimensional level. Into nothing. So in context to the reconstruction of the universal planetary Templar complex, you have to know that none of this is guaranteed. It's not going to be handed to you on a silver platter. You have to do the real work. And see, with it in context to the Grail of consciousness, its link up into our timelines has to be done by us here in Midgard. It is our responsibility. And humanity is the key in breaking the seals put upon this sector that are directly linked to the astral barrier. One could also say that the barrier within the astral is the seals, and that the interaction between humans and these seals have generated the astral barrier, restricting the universal planetary Templar complex to only emit an extremely limited range of energies and consciousness. Hence, the difficulty of being able to reconstruct the universal planetary Templar complex. So again, it all starts with us, and it starts with anyone that's actually hearing what the fuck I have to say here. It is us that does this. Humanity has to cleanse and heal their part, starting with the emotional and mental fields when it comes to the core wound of humanity. Also along with the collective unconscious grid works within the fourth veil of the lower astral specifically. And again, if people want to know more about what's really going on here and how it has affected you as an individual, then I'm going to encourage initiation into the Blue Flame Healing Arts specifically. That's the first phase of initiation. And you must first know thyself before getting into advanced practice with the higher occult sciences in context to magic. And see right here, what I'm showing you is fucking magic. This is exactly where I've been wanting to take things. I will show the individual how to master the mental and emotional bodies that are there within, which gives specific individuals access to shards of consciousness needing to be accessed to integrate back into the original template. To those to whom this is referred on a higher level are specific individuals that have been doing this work for a very long time. No technology and all of the universes can do what we have created and need to take responsibility to fix this shit. And if individuals want to pass off the fucking buck, then you're going to be left with what the collective unconscious is going to fucking yield. There is going to be no excuses as we continue to wake up and begin the transition work from within. And see, coming into this, you really start to realize what actually needs to be done. And also the fact that Earth belongs to us as humanity, along with every other indigenous life form that has always existed here. And because we are directly linked to the Universal Planetary Templar Complex, all of it holds the true memory and knowledge of the root races that went before us. So at the end of the day, it is current humanity that has to do the reconstruction work. That is, if we are truly going to call Earth our own. And especially if we are to be part of the planetary system on the 3 spirals of creation after the Great Transition in 2065. The organic interdimensional core energy system of Earth, along with the inherent portals, vortices, axiom lines, ley lines, and stargates, are also part of the Universal Planetary Templar Complex. And the Planetary Templar Complex as one unit. This further includes the 3 core templates on the 9, on the 12, which is 13, and is the natural thermo-radionic, photosonic, and electromagnetic functions of the Earth's organic energy system. Thus, the mathematical and geometrical structure of the Universal Planetary Templar Complex and personal Templar complexes in connection to it as individuals includes many key components to what I will be presenting in context to the true universal tree of life. Right now, though, it is important to know that the organic energy system of Midgard includes the realities of the interdimensional time portal and interdimensional gridworks and systems of consciousness, along with a natural network of portals and signet stargates through which our Earth is connected to many other interstellar, interdimensional space-time systems on a multidimensional level, along with other worlds and other universes, in context to all that can be accessed from within. The advanced ancient knowledge of the sacred science concerning the manual operation of the powers of Earth's Universal Planetary Templar Complex has been lost to humanity for many thousands of eons, like I've been getting at with everything. But the return of this knowledge in our contemporary time will empower the individual that grabs a hold of this in this present generation. And for those of us who are holding the torch, it is our responsibility to not only be the keepers of this wisdom once you're initiated, but to be a keeper for the generations to come, in order to orchestrate advanced applications of healing, remembering, working also to potentially live in an all-organic and free energy system, and to eventually open access to the stargates and portals of Earth's Universal Planetary Templar Complex. And with all of this, it's in no particular order, and it's to note that it's the universal life force current from the 15th dimensional spectrum of consciousness that continually circulate throughout the Universal Planetary Templar Complex system. And it's nothing to do with the lower astral bullshit holding the Earth in its current manifest matter form. It's universal energy to life force currents that flow through Earth's Universal Planetary Templar Complex via the organic energy conduits of natural planetary energy fields. So when we're dealing with what we call the Universal Planetary Templar Complex, we are dealing with the organic stargate system of Earth itself, which is you. We are the Signet Councils that are re-emerging again. We are the true stargates. And when we're dealing with the solar system's Templar complex, it is the planetary spheres themselves that are the stargates of the solar system, in which I term the solar spiral of creation. And see, with this, we have our own personal Templars in context to navigating these stargates of consciousness, which are some of the most ancient, pure guides that we could ever hope to fucking work with. This is not some disembodied spirit or entity that you need to invoke. This is already there within you, which gets into explaining those structures and how to work with them. And this is already what I've been doing on my own volition in context to mentoring individuals with the Blue Flame, healing arts, and occult science, specifically when it comes to our school. See, manual interaction with Earth's Templar complex takes place through employment of advanced system mechanics of know thyself and the higher occult sciences in context of magic, with which the human DNA template and body can be activated to serve as a direct electromagnetic conduit of frequency from the interdimensional frequency spectrum of consciousness into Earth's planetary shields. In truth, humanity holds commission of serving as Earth's protector race, which is everything to do with holding the keys to Earth's Templar. Now see, this is everything to do with Thunar, who is the archetype in symbolism and is the protector of mankind when it comes to the ancient Nordic tradition of my ancestors. This is Indra getting into the Vedas and knowing how to wield the knowledge of the universal planetary Templar complex mechanics is what drinking from the cup of the Grail of consciousness is all about. And is the heritage of divine sacred science by which humanity can fulfill its divine commission, as it was with the Magi Grail Shaman. Again, this is our position here at Black Earth Productions. And a part of this responsibility is all about learning what your part in all of this is. So not only you know what you're doing with your energy, but it's also to recognize that you just don't get to go ahead and do whatever the fuck you think you want because you have the free will to do so. In fact, we are here to master free will in alignment. And there's a difference there. Mastering this gift that we have been given, this opportunity to be partakers of the commission. Now listen, I've experienced everything that the world has had to fucking offer, and nothing, I mean nothing, is as potent as being connected to true purpose in alignment. And also being able to share that purpose with others that actually potentially give a fuck about anything that I'm speaking about here, let alone anything that you would be speaking about or doing or creating or encrypting. We're here to clean up after ourselves, taking care of our energy fields. Because if you're not working to do this, then who the fuck do you think is going to end up taking control of your energy field if you're not working to master it? The latter is fucking inevitable here in Midgard. All you have to do, knowing the difference, is look around you. Because during this time, we have been alerted that those who hold genetics and consciousness connected to the first and second seeding original human race tribes, those that hold a direct genetic relationship to the related universal planetary Templar complex Stargate system mechanics within their Templar, are more vulnerable to the descending timelines, blasted with the accumulative dark force genetic miasma that works to prevent their codes from activating. Now see, this is very, very fucking rare. And one reason is that many of the humans on the earth belong to these original human race tribes and are key coded as Grail keepers themselves, or DNA code keepers to protect specific power vortexes. This exposure is due to the fact that the accumulated energy blockages and entities in the planetary body are surfacing into the horizontal ley lines that run into these particular stargates on Earth's grid, which means these massive black force gestalts of consciousness are traveling on the east-west moving lines on the surface of the planet in much larger quantities because they have been released to do so by the Dark Ones themselves. And it's all about not giving power to any of these things that I'm talking about. It's just to know the difference and also recognize that we're being hit on all fronts in context, not only when it comes to consciousness, but also our physical lives, which is why the prima materia is so important in context to the magnum opus. See, again, we are the stargates within the earth, holding massive wells of consciousness energy underground within the earth body itself, within our own bodies. And this is the chalice structure of the upper template. Okay, listen. Which holds the contents of the instructions set for specific Stargate and DNA encoded history to potentially be unveiled to the individual in context to original human race, tribe, blood codes. And it's these wells of consciousness that hold sound waves and colors that we could refer to as sections of the Cathar body within the earth itself. You remember the Cathars. Again, all is within you. And so are these wells of consciousness, intelligence, held in areas of the planetary microcosm, and are the pathways and portals of integrating back into higher dimensional frequencies of consciousness. Exactly in the same way our lower chakras are being mastered with the upper at the individual microcosm level. It is how these energies surface from inside the earth and onto the surface grid from within us. See, the original function is to return to these sound waves, colors, and forces back to the original stargates of the earth itself. The original point where consciousness intelligence entered into this realm to create the planetary body, which is the Grail point within the 2D stargate, and is where the collective energies and the collective consciousness connected to that specific bowl of energy is having problems dissipating the miasmic accumulation of the color wave spectrum specifically. This in context is everything to do with the internet and what the fuck is going on with it and how people are using it as one example. See, listen. How the fuck are you going to use this technology in alignment with your true technology, which is you? Now, see, the Dark Ones have their fucking inverted plans for that. But once you see how this shit works, that I'm getting at in context, you're going to see not only their plan, but everything that's set into alignment and trajectory that is beyond what you could possibly wrap your brain around at the moment. You need to understand that forces running in some places on the World Wide Web networks are being redirected to other spaces that they shouldn't be. And some by twisted ass alien machinery to cause major damage to the 2D Grail Point Stargate here in Midgard. Things like entity displacement, keying people into the antagonistic core to capture souls through fallen Anu Melchizedek attachments, primarily the slag and the 1 to 2D planetary energies. And you listening here on Black Earth Productions better pay the fuck attention to what I've just said. Because like I said, with what's going on in the 4th dimension, they don't own the astral. And neither do they own the bridge point to the ether with the 1D and 2D stargates here in the 3rd dimension. See, this is also a stargate that we are using here to be in communication with each other across the earth now. Now with this, the question I will again ask you is how are we going to use this technology to our advantage here? And both Starseed and Earthseed individuals that hold the 2D Stargate key codes, along with individuals that are disassociated, who have ended up getting stuck in lower fields of consciousness and veils from a 2D to 4D soul split within themselves, and are getting specifically targeted for entity superimposition because these groups have a natural predisposition for accumulating an overwhelming amount of 2D miasma that leads to major problems and energetic blocks in their bodies on a multidimensional level. And the last thing that the controllers and the social engineers want to happen is for the key-coded Grail keepers to wake the fuck up and understand what is happening to the Grail points on the earth itself, and even deeper from within themselves as these things are awakening for real. And get on this shit and do what I and others have been doing in context to help relieve these blockages building up in our reality field. This is what needs to occur during these transitions, to help release this accumulating pressure, not only within the human body itself, and I know you can all fucking feel it, but this is also to do with the earth itself, as above, so below, as within, as without. And this ultimately means that the dark forces must be moved into another time-space continuum out of this solar system completely. And so that the Stargate Guardian host must be connected in context to their core in order to accomplish the protocol that is meant to route out this shit into their relocation. So during the time of the outroll of the New Age material starting back in the 1970s, it was controlled from the start by factions including the Fabian Society, which, by the way, their sigil is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, going back to what I was saying about the blood wolf moon, there's a difference between these sick wolves that wear the skins of sheep. These wolves are nothing to do with our kin, because they, along with extra dimensionals, have worked to write their coding and templating into the earth fields of consciousness. Many of the New Age spiritual communities that have been organized on Earth with agendas to harvest and control consciousness, memory, and genetics. With this, you need to know that our genetics in consciousness is a form of currency in trade with many off-planet beings that are not in operation with Orion's money magic system. Again, money is just energy. Everything is energy. And many times these groups have targeted individuals with quote-unquote world service contracts that are allegedly set forth to make karmic restitution or amends in trade. And see, this is how they're raking everybody in to fuel line their grid works of consciousness. It's nothing to do with sovereignty. It's nothing to do with the fucking truth. It's nothing to do with freedom. And with this, as certain humans that have had their memories erased are put in high positions of power on other timelines here in our reality field. And by recruiting some of these leaders for their abilities, which have also been cultivated from previous lifetimes. See, with this, they've even tried to get me. When the OTO and the Knights of Malta tried to recruit me, both within the same year back in 2011, like I've talked about. See, there's a difference here with everything. And you have to know the fucking difference by knowing the fucking game. If you don't know the game and how they are manipulating the objective laws of the fucking universe against you, and you're not being initiated and you're not making the playing field even, then you are completely fucked. And see, we are not an organized group. We're an eclectic group that know how shit actually works. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions. I will be back shortly after the break.
Man valer här vart det vågar Stormdøtrene krysser og med skaleksrediftøy. Bladbølge stig nå, bladbølge stig nå. Svelg alt til en gjenting, bladbølge stig nå. Blodregen fra skia, himmel på fra denne bølge. Man valer her vatte fove. Stormdøtrene krysser og med skaleksrediftøy. Bladbølge stig nå, bladbølge stig nå. Svelg alt til en gjenting, bladbølge stig nå. Blodregen fra skia, himmel på fra denne bølge. Man valer her vatte fove. Stormdøtrene krysser og med skaleksrediftøy. Bladbølge stig nå, bladbølge stig nå. Svelg alt til en gjenting, bladbølge stig nå.
Why did you wake me up? Why do I have to sing? Why do you wake me up now? The ocean will be ruled with horrific riders. A gift for a gift. He who is born to be hanged shall never be drowned. The web is now woven, and wages are sacrificed. The shore will redden the land. It is horrible now to look. A red cloud darkens the water, and daughters sang their songs. Blood rains from a clouded sky on a wave of froth. The choice of men has been woven. Storm daughters cross it, the crimson weft, shallow all till nothing. For we sang well victory songs, an answer to battle, hail to our singing, with those who listen to our blood song. Now rise. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions. Unpacking things in context to the Magi, Grail, Shaman. We are always questioning motives and not blindly following anyone, because when humans are not given context or know the real game that is taking place with everything, spiritual healing in multidimensional reality is very hard. The difference between deception and truth here on Earth is to recognize that individuals that blindly follow anyone and easily give away their personal authority are fucking slaves and have been traumatized through many lifetimes in their master-slave paradox. Most of these recruitments for spiritual communities use a similar template that can be immediately recognized knowing the difference, and would also be the power interplay between the guru and the disciple type of situations. Now, granted, leadership is absolutely fucking necessary in the case of mentorship, but only with accountability to the ancient protocol, to which no leader or whatever the fuck can cross a line with. If we are going to set things right, the quote-unquote guru of the New Age, who is given levels of absolute power and worship from the devotees in order for the disciple to believe that he or she is blessed with a sort of eternal salvation through some kind of grace being dispensed by the guru. See, this is fucking bullshit. Instead, the teacher needs to show their students how to attain these things themselves. And is what we work to teach in context to mentorship here on Black Earth Productions. That's the difference with our school, that we first teach the system mechanics to know thyself. And then from there, and only there, are you going to know the universe, what the gods and goddesses truly are, let alone what connection to the higher force is all about, to what I term creator source. So fuck all the New Age bullshit, fuck religion. Again, this is the pathwork of wolves and motherfucking dragons. Not these lowly, sick wolves that hide behind the blood and skins of slaughtered sheep so to infect the masses with their bullshit off-world insanity. It's time for the real wolves to rise up. Humanity has a hidden power already fucking there within the DNA template, through which the innate planetary Stargate security codes can be used to trigger activation of a natural 12-dimensional planetary security code within Earth's Templar, which, if successfully erected, would permanently protect Earth's portals and stargates and ley lines from any further fallen Anu Melchizedek draconian bullshit. So you need to understand that humans are the greatest threat to these factions in context. For this reason, they have gone to great lengths to ensure that our genetically induced race amnesia perpetuates itself, and to keep individuals and spiritual practitioners in ignorance to the sacred higher occult sciences, through which humanity can regain its intended position in protection of Earth's universal planetary Templar complex Stargate system. The contemporary hidden battle with the fallen Anu Melchizedek legions cannot be ultimately won with external weapons and overt warfare. And though this may become necessary in part, as it has in the past, as a way of work to progress things. It's to recognize that this war has always been going on within you as the individual. Once the real war within you is won, evil cannot fuck with you here in Midgard. And see, this is a major secret that people really, really need to grab a hold of. Even though the photosonic and photoradionic weapons make contemporary humans' weapons technologies appear as child's toys in comparison, they got the motherfucking military-industrial complex. They got fucking nukes. All right? Not to mention the fact the true weapons of our warfare go far beyond theirs in context to magic and the higher occult sciences. So as humans, we need to literally become invisible dragons, a stealth group of individuals that know how to war on a multidimensional level and make strikes that are going to be marked as major navigation points in trajectory for those to whom it's meant. And like the Berserker and the Ulfadnar, we hold these skills and abilities. Not to mention that we have superior interdimensional cloaking technologies. Even as it was said about the Tuatha, we are able to cloak ourselves. External technology is not the medium through which the contemporary playing field is going to become level. It will only become leveled when you come to know thyself and encrypt from within yourself the knowledge of genuine spirituality, coming to know how to wield your personal universal planetary Templar complex system mechanics, and know the dynamics of human biology and DNA resolution. This will be the deciding factor in this final conflict drama. So in this regard, the organic brain and the multi-genetic biological DNA are mightier than even photosonic swords born of external technologies. For it is we who are the sword and the motherfucking hammer. And as humans can come to remember this, the present generation of individuals that choose this will be among those that set course for Earth to be free from 26,000 years of covert interdimensional enslavement by effectively using inherent gifts, our own eternal spirit, all encompassed and activated on a multidimensional level. And not just for our generation, but for generations to come. Now I want to dive into a bit more history. In the ancient days, the oldest name for all of Europe was called Albion. It is mentioned in the myths and legends that have long existed over the ages that the original inhabitants of Europe were the founders of the land named Albion. The mystical significance of Albion has been memorialized through poems and, of course, the mythos itself. But altogether, they actually suggest the nature of Albion, which is related to the collective human consciousness and the soul of the earth itself, to which all races are intimately connected. Albion is a major part of the original human template, created from one of the 12 specific spheres of the true universal tree of life, through which during the fall of humankind became buried in the lower dimensional fields of the earth, which again is reflected from within us as humanity, awaiting to be awakened. This elemental structure of the primordial human template is located in the earth body and is made from the original cosmic blueprint. This original blueprint records the divine plan and holds the celestial records of humankind's evolution throughout the solar system on the solar spiral of creation and also the galactic spiral of creation. The awakening of Albion within specific individuals has been happening in progressive stages throughout the Albion body from within Earth's universal planetary Templar complex. This generally accelerates the gradual shifts in consciousness in the mental and emotional bodies of individuals here on Earth, working to reflect the higher mind's core consciousness, which is reflected in the stages of the awakening Albion. The Hyperboreans are root races from seventh dimensional Earth consciousness. And Hyperboreans are important because they existed around the timeline of the original trauma which happened to the human race. This is where the split in time and space occurred. And this is when the moon was brought to Earth after the destruction of Maldek. Now, Maldek is something that I've mentioned before, but here in this segment, I'm going to take some time now reading from the Cosmic History Chronicles, diving a little bit deeper into Maldek, which was major confirmation to me, knowing what I know about what has actually happened. The memory of the dissolution of Maldek contains the knowledge of the origins within this star system of the process of cosmic history, unfolding of the involution of spirit into matter. The expulsion of the planet by some great force caused it to shatter into countless fragments, now called the asteroid belt. And we have to ask ourselves, what kind of fucking force would be necessary to create that type of shattering? It would have to be key-awesome, and is one of the most deeply buried facts within the archetypal consciousness of the current race of sentient beings that inhabit the Earth herself. So as part of the Maldekian recall, there is an actual asteroid name encyclopedia that catalogs hundreds of the shards of Maldek, making it an interesting study of unconscious archetypal projection. The largest fragment of Maldek besides the moon itself is called Quetzalcoatl, and it's for this reason that we have regenerative emergence of the serpent dragon charge of Maldek, reconstituted in the human female form at the closing of the cycle. At this stage now, the supposed human leaders who are conducting the affairs of the planet have the potential of repeating the disastrous catastrophe of Maldek in the apocalyptic brink of Velatropa 24.3. Cosmic history comes forth to divert the program script and ensure its supramental ventilation to release the pressure on humans who are working to make this transition. And see, all of this had to be revealed to an avataric emanation prepared by Pakal Votan, a supreme avatar of time who was the greatest magician in the history of the Mesoamericas. And Votan, well, we all know who Odin here is on Black Earth Productions. The seer of seers, the magician of magicians. And even here in the Cosmic History Chronicles, there is more coming together than I can actually say all at once. Because Votan, or Wotan, or Odin, or Orin, as it says, this knowledge had to be revealed to an avataric emanation prepared by him in context to all of this. And all of it had to be triggered out by an inspired response to the female persona embodying the primary shards of Maldek. The closing of this cycle is what has occasioned the necessity of the archetype to manifest in these moments, to receive the transmission of the regeneration of that which has been destroyed. This particular archetype embodies the pure essence of the Maldekian life force stream, as it has been consummated over many world cycles. The regeneration, of course, comes at the point of the closing of the cycle, where the potential for similar destruction also occurs at the same time. This type of knowledge transmission and awareness of different factors that have been involved in previous interplanetary episodes are consummate on our planet. Velatropa 24.3. The responsibility of transmitter and receiver is great, and the work has to be performed properly and precise. Because as a transmission of proper knowledge and wisdom, with the process of accounting for regeneration of planets or star systems, this is also why it is referred to as the second creation. Cosmic history is dependent on the discovery of the law of time, because the law of time provides the necessary articulation of the radio whole system order. The forms transmitted have their root in the destruction of Maldek. And this is one of the grand themes of the Cosmic History Chronicles, the meaning of the interval of lost time in eternity. We know mathematically that the meaning of the interval can be reduced to the whole number ratio of 7. And what is the 7 again? It is also the 9, which is the spindle of the energy force itself, the positive and negative charge when it comes to the blue flame, healing arts, and occult science, where individuals can come to learn how to wield Excalibur from within themselves. This is all about going through the process of individuation and self-actualized initiation into the occult, in consideration of the constituent elements of reality. the coming together of time and space by means of the ratio interval 7, which again is also the 9, creates a manifestation which is automatically organic and inorganic. So with an episode from the highest perception, such as Maldek, is a point of failure in the organic and inorganic evolution of process. And due to a recall of the primal break in the cosmic egg, it's this break which has become a signal. And cosmic history is the response to this signal. But for it to be meaningful, any signal needs to be transmitted and received. And so with that, in context to the cosmic egg, everybody listening to this right now, go back and watch the segment, the Psychosomatic Northern Soul Complex, because it is in that segment I get into the consciousness of the serpents of wisdom, the egg of the white dragon, that was shattered on account of the destruction of Maldek, to the fragmentation of consciousness around the timeline of the original trauma that happened to the human race. This is where the split in time and space occurred. And this is when the moon was brought to Earth after the destruction of Maldek. So to basically regulate the etheric body from the fourth dimension, which again is the combination of the mental and emotional bodies, and happened in order to manage the gravitational field of Earth and mankind on a 23.4 degree axis pole shift of consciousness. And so prior to this, the Hyperborean period on Earth was one of humanity's golden ages, and the level of monadic identity was fully connected and fully embodied as the Universal Planetary Templar Complex, which is where we were in alignment in context to the art and science of alchemy and the biospiritual regenesis, as it was meant for the Earth being a seed planet that the Hyperboreans were directly involved with, and where they were split apart from their higher spiritual counterparts in Polaris, which essentially is the monad body of the Earth herself. The Hyperboreans existed as a specific gridwork of consciousness here in our reality field, along with others. Yet currently, that consciousness has an access point here in this timeline, specifically in the northern part of the Earth. And as I've said, all of humanity hails from the Great North. So with the latest transmission of cosmic law that is coming to the forefront again, the planet is intersecting with the Hyperborean gridwork of consciousness on timelines within the 7th dimension. And it's also important to note that the 8th pillar has been compromised, both to which are where a lot of the original histories of humanity exist eons before the fall of mankind ever took place. And another way of looking at this is to know for a fact that we have been conditioned to see things like this from a fragmented consciousness point of view, running on infinite feedback loops and timelines and cycles that keep repeating themselves over and over and over again, like I've said in previous segments. When the latter I'm speaking of is the truth beyond it all. And the divine plan here is to fucking find and locate the portions of the Albion body here in Midgard, which are meant to awaken the world's soul through the galactic Stargate transmissions on all 3 spirals of creation. And see, I just did this with what I shared about Pakal Votan. And it's not just this I'm pulling together, you guys. I'm pulling together things in a way that you cannot fully wrap my brain around still. This shit is blowing my fucking mind out the back of my head over here. And I'm having to break it down in very simple terms in order to be able to share it with you. This is very, very powerful what I am unpacking here. And I hope that those of you that are listening are catching what is being unveiled here. There have been many magicians that have attempted this before in history, but never has it come to this point, and to what the ancestors have commissioned for me personally as a keeper of the sacred tree. So what are the signet symbol codes of Boza? And see, like Odin, when he went forth screaming in catharsis, spying the runes from Gunungagat, those were his signet symbol codes. See, all of this is there for us to access as well. That's the secret with what I'll say, Votan. has revealed. Because I'm just getting started for this year still. There's still a lot more that's going to be coming forward in the weeks and months to come. Ultimately, this integrates all the broken shards of consciousness through the hollow mirrors back into the Albion body consciousness gridworks. This, you could say, is the alchemical wedding of the masculine and feminine principle, which is the marriage of spirit and matter on earth in this ascending timeline. And as we expand our consciousness, our spiritual intention is to facilitate the preparations for this sacred union of the Albion bodies with those to whom it's meant. As we bring our witness to our ritual ceremony taking place during this alchemical process we are going through with the blue flame healing arts specifically, the Heros Gamos, the mystery of all mysteries, where we can connect with that blazing stone within our core essence. For this is the Lapis Philosophorum. This is the Grail of consciousness, the true knowledge of the elixir of life, to what my ancestors called the nectar of immortality. The lapis is essential to find within yourself, and as without, to even begin to know the true occult secrets of the Grail of consciousness. The Albion body has stargates of consciousness and centers that make up entire sections of our bodies which represent principles recorded in the earth to expand solar, galactic, and universal consciousness. And as the Albion body has been essentially dormant, it exists there within the unconscious and generates darkness and ignorance, understood further as the false cold dead light of the dark Luciferian consciousness. And so facing this is also to awaken Albion, and is also there to rehabilitate the unconscious, breaking the chains of the dark Luciferian forces here in our reality field, and to the self-realized higher consciousness of the true core essence. The diamond sun or the diamond heart DNA template reflects the fact that all is truly within. And Albion is in the planetary body gridworks as a sphere of consciousness itself, and is the exact replica of the 12 to 48 strand DNA human nucleus consciousness, the first expression of a human being that is recorded within the planetary bodies. Albion is comprised of the architecture of cosmic law and structure that manifests as the divine human body within the true universal tree of life. The Albion is within the core manifestation template of the human body, and the actual shape of that body is referred to as the Albion. One way of looking at the Albion is that it is masculine in principle and yet feminine in its expression, also vice versa, and is governed through cosmic logos. The Albion exists as a cell in the body of the solar logos, which is at the core of the nucleus of the cell itself. And each of us exists as a cell in the planetary body of Earth herself. The planetary body is made in the image of Albion, and it is connected to the 12 to 48 strand DNA silicate matrix body consciousness, in context to 12 specific ciphers within the true universal tree of life, which represent part of the consciousness of Albion, which is also reflected in context to the egg of the white dragon, which makes up the light body. And the auric egg, or your auric field, is what I'm talking about here, which contains sound waves of the Grail of consciousness within these ciphers once they are tapped, which is where you can start to make manifest through the corrected Albion within yourself. Now see, with this, you can already see how I'm putting certain components together into a schematic that's literally going to bring everything together in trajectory. And I've already put together 3 of the key components to the true universal tree of life here in context. With this, there are many, many more that go along with this, and as a part of what I'm going to be unpacking in context to more advanced initiations. Next, we're going to get into Galder, which is the principle of evocation. But before that, we're going to take another break here. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions. I'll be back to dive deeper into all of this after the break.
Any magicians left on the planet?
Yeah, of course there are.
And how would somebody know if they were a magician but weren't actually practicing yet as a magician but had the potential, the pure potential to be a magician?
Wow, that's an unanswerable question, really. The magician has a path that he walks that is not like anybody else's, so it's very likely that he won't know, hidden from himself, who he is. They have to walk across the desert without rhythm. This is very much the opening preface of the book that he should read. Because if he cares about what other people think, say and do, he's not going to get very far. He'll be ruined and destroyed very quickly. You have to operate on that manual, because if you don't, the world will eat you alive.
Or you'll be seduced into the other camp.
Absolutely, which is very possible. And of course, that there are certain people who are lit from within. They are the movers and the shakers. It's almost like you have a china vase, a Ming vase. Well, it's going to come in a box full of peanuts. And then there's the reflectors of other people's life who are not yet lit from within. But a lot of people walking around, they're just the packing straw. They are literally just the peanuts. That's just the way it is. You know, because from a psychological background, I'm not religious, so I don't believe people come into this world with a soul. I'm into psychology, and I believe that man creates his soul while he's here. He's always going to have the mind of a beginner, and he is that precious pearl that sits amongst the straw. It's just the way it is. And you know, if he's worrying about what those peanuts and that straw is thinking of him, he's never ever going to make it, you know, through all the obstacles that come, because the Siddhartha road is very hard to walk. It has a lot of challenges on it, and therefore it's very good to, you know, be aware of that and strengthen your own immunity. And the people who come to you are mostly in the beginning stages, and they need the guidance, and that's fine.
Any magicians left on the planet?
Yeah, of course there are.
We are back now from the break here on Black Earth Productions. My name is Sethikus Boza, and yes, there are magicians indefinitely within our reality field here in Midgard. And so now moving further into this segment, Again, when it comes to the ancient tradition of my ancestors, the art and science of Galder is the principle of evocation, which is everything to do with sound, tone, music, and light that feel within the Albion spherical architecture in its expression through the divine feminine force. Therefore, the Albion itself is the divine masculine codes of creation, the seeds of sounds, and thus forth, in context to Galder, formulated as fire and ice within the primordial womb itself. And both have to interact and interconnect and intercourse in sacred marriage to birth the Albion from within yourself. As I've said again and again with my teaching, this is the mystery of all mysteries. This is the grail of consciousness that we're talking about here. This is the sacred union that generates new balanced creations and co-creation throughout our reality field here in Midgard. And as matter becomes spiritualized through the animating power of the higher force itself, we are getting closer and closer to our actual normal state of consciousness. What people think is normal is actually fucking slavery. So next here in context, getting into the spine of Albion, the blue flame shield is meant to help clear out the Yahweh matrix and Metatronic infection of reverse light coding in the Earth human original race tribes, DNA coding, and tribal shields. This appears to be rehabilitating the architecture in the planetary Albion body as I speak, in which though the structure for the spine of Albion has intersected with the blue flame host shield into the silver sanctum of the Lyrium platforms on the galactic spiral, and then out of the golden gateway into the 9 worlds and universes of Yggdrasil, in through the archetypes of consciousness with the gods and goddesses. These are the ancestors that are awakening from within us now. And the elemental re-encryption change occurring within the spine of Albion itself. All of this impacts the bone matrix as well, within the original human race tribe codex. As I've said before, that all of this is in my blood and in my bones, which appears here now to release the one-dimensional death seal and help free the blood and bones and physical tissue from intergenerational blood covenants and inherited miasmic patterns that were manifested from the alien genetic bonds and their distorted modifications. Now, in reference from historical timeline trigger events in 1400 YA, which is when the invasion of Albion took place, and it was the 4th, the 8th, and the 11th Stargate of the Universal Planetary Templar Complex that ended up becoming compromised in order to murder the Magi Grail Shaman and all of its cohorts, including Arthurus Artorius and his support team Knights of the Round Table. Because after this is when the Dark Luciferians really started to take over. And thus the false kings of tyranny began to take the place of leadership here in our reality field. See, another major factor to consider is that the Archons, along with these individuals, do not want to fucking heal. They want nothing to do with it. All they give a fuck about is domination and control and sucking the life force energy and genetics and consciousness of every sentient being that has ever existed and does exist into the fuel line of their grid works on the lower astral, and thereby integrate into human society as an equal being. And see, these motherfuckers look human, but they're not fucking human. Not true human. And again, they want to rule over other humans as an absolute authority with an iron fist as the false kings of tyranny. And see, this is in context of both the patriarchal and matriarchal domination. It's fucking both. So people just need to get the fuck over it. It's both men and women that are fucked up and they need to pull their heads out of their fucking asses. The power elite are the group of humanoids handed the control over the majority of the resources of the earth in order to carry out the archonic deception strategy, which has put all of us into a place to ensure that war, enslavement, And all mind control programming continues to divide and conquer the human races. This is a self-enforcing system of mind control, promoted through all world organizations, and it's been designed to shape every ideology and false values based upon the archonic deception behaviors of the predator mind of the psychopath. And those humans who choose to feed the false king of tyranny are sometimes even fucking rewarded for this shit with temporary matrix world status, power, or fame as a fucking puppet on the world stage to mesmerize the rest of the people that are unaware of these things in our reality field. Now see, it was a specific Orion group which created the hierarchical control systems that operate behind every world power and pillar of society. And in our time now, they have also been using technological mind control tactics, suppressor parasites, or SPEs, and have downloaded their predator state of mind into the people on Earth through invasion of the planetary logos to enslave and dominate the direction of human being affairs here on Earth, keeping us from coming to know who we truly are, all the way from the streets into the domestic spheres and all the way up into the corridors of corporate power here in our reality field. So when it comes to the false kings of tyranny, I'm going to give you the fucking profile of these false kings and queens. And there's a major difference here in context to the Magi, Grail, Shaman, and the ancient wisdom councils. And see, if you're going to compare it to anything in context to history, we were the motherfucking pharaohs. The true pharaohs, keepers of the mysteries, the overseers, and those that were entrusted and held accountable as it is meant to be. You got to know the fucking difference when it comes to all of this. Because again, mentorship and true leadership is necessary here. But in order to become that, you're going to be tested and you're going to have to go through the true initiations. That is why I am doing all this. This is why I've created this platform, to give individuals the opportunity for this. So in light of marking out these motherfuckers, here's the list now of characteristics that you need to pay attention to when it comes to all of this and exposing the dark ones and what their state of mind is in context to everything. Number 1, they have a lust and a need to have power and control over others. It's behavior that denies taking any personal responsibility in life, held accountable to cosmic law, playing the victim, and are they who project onto others by means of persecution and humiliation, in denial, both professionally and also in personal relationships. This, in short, is the predator state of mind of the psychopath. It is malignant narcissism to the fucking core on a very extreme sociopathic level. Number 2, they shut down true hardcore intelligence, deny trauma and emotional processing of experiences in order to carry out their power and control and role and guise with inverted alpha male and female agendas. This, in short, is the malignant narcissistic wound. Number 3, they are ruthless in their tactics of manipulation and control, both in professional, tribal, and other relational settings in order to get their shadow needs and desires met, which can sometimes be based on gender role expectations of another individual, or personal narratives that are not only in service and interest to themselves, but it is basically going to exploit everyone else around them, and they don't give a fuck. Number 4, denial, blame. They negate intuition or the concerns of other people, shifting personal responsibility and rejecting emotional intelligence and higher sensory perception, which is seen to them as ludicrous or stupid. Now with this, it's not to throw logic out the fucking window, because true intuition is going to be backed up by logic as well. Number 5, self-hatred generated and self-rejection of the inner male and female, which is the cause point, psychologically speaking, in context to neo-feminism and unjustified misogyny. And see, with this, it can go to both fucking extremes. and in context to all of the psyops that have been taking place, to be the cause point for the divide and conquer between men and women, it's like I said, both men and women need to pull their heads out of their motherfucking asses. Number 6, they are unable to direct emotional tensions or communicate openly about what they are thinking or what they are feeling. They are unable to interact in mutual dialogues. For the false king and queen of tyranny talk at you, not along with you. They are incapable of respect while interacting or being open intimately and authentic through shared dialogues built on trust. This also comes from playing the victim and from fear of getting exposed for who the fuck they are. Number 7, they are prone to forms of inner and outer violence. And not the type of violence that is justified. I'm talking about the type of violence it's like, what the motherfucker? And as their inner tension builds, it then explodes, usually out of fucking nowhere. In some cases, this is what happens with us as well. But these are the motherfuckers that also like to play mind games for the cause of emotional and mental abuse and physical violence as well. All of these symptoms here come from a deep-seated fear and insecurity, trying to feel control over others so that they can feel more powerful. Number 8. Number 8 is intimidation, threats, and bullying techniques that are used to make people afraid for no other reason but to be the victim of their projections, to cause fear of wrath with brute force. They invoke potential harm if who they are projecting upon acts out of line. The inverted alpha male-female pattern to this mentality intimidates others in a very extreme and unjustified way. Number 9, they treat certain groups of people on a lower class scale. They are incapable of independent thinking or have any true purpose in life. And it's these draconian hierarchical systems of domination and control that are ultimately designed to be the cause point for inverted rank and caste system. Women as slaves and breeders, men as slaves and workers. Reverse racism and caste system domination. And lastly, number 10, they isolate, deceive, and use divide and conquer techniques to disable people that may pose a threat to their personal power or control over situations. They are ruthless in their belief in the need to win all the time and never risk losing in order to grow in knowledge and gain wisdom. And see, the wizard knows when to play possum. The true wizard is going to get the opposition to think that they're weak where they're actually strong. We are in a psychic war for the consciousness of mankind. And all of these things I've shared with you are tied to the ideas that they have about themselves and have extremely low self-esteem and moral ethics. With all of this, these are just a few things to look out for when it comes to specific behaviors that every single individual deals with on an unconscious level due to the fact that mankind has been conditioned to think like this. It's not taking things to an extreme, but it's to recognize that the false kings and queens of tyranny are here. And as far as I'm concerned, we need to become pharaohs, who are a major step above the concept of a king and queen. They are the full integration of both, having surpassed the lower level alpha and beta positions of consciousness, and have arrived at the level of gamma consciousness. So in a social system based on power and control, with no regard to life, the means of enforcing that system are again made through threats, intimidation, and unjustified violence. By creating victims and victimizers, this is to do with both genders. It's not just one or the other here. And these are the people who want to be in the alpha positions over others, instead of the gamma position, which is our true birthright, and therefore not to be victimized or humiliated by others, especially these false kings and queens of tyranny, who have to victimize others in order to not be victimized themselves, instead of being a source of encouragement and empowerment. This is the setup to control the relationship flow between men and women, to self-enforce their tyranny both unconsciously and consciously playing out in every level of society. in personal relationships, families, social structures, organizations, and professions. It's important to understand that this is a program downloaded into the unconscious emotional body and enforced by the systems of domination and mind control to divide and conquer the earth. The thought form and its predator mind constructs are not inorganic to the human race and earth itself, and were installed here at the time of the Dark Luciferian Rebellion. And one of the main battles here in context in human galactic history was fought in the constellation of Orion. And when these wars took place, these wars started to take over territories in the constellation and gridworks of consciousness in the cradle of Lyra. These were the wars of Orion, and became the wars with the false kings and queens of tyranny, with their state of mind and ideologies, which is essentially the seed of all war. These anti-human groups were mixtures of humanoids and draconian reptilian races that propagated service to self and anti-humanity efforts. These wars, as they still continue in these moments, are over the control and service to self ideology, which originated in the constellation consciousness gridworks of Orion. The genetic hatred from the Orion group digressed into a violent murder and destruction at the expense of others, which resulted in the propagation of the victim-victimizer mind control. Now, to take this further, the intergalactic Orion Wars started off as a war between two parties. See, this is nothing new, everyone. And it was defectors of this dark empire that started to enter into the scene as a third party. They became known as the Black League of Orion. Not all that hail from the Orion gridworks were evil, for it was the Orion Black League, which is a well-known term used to describe the resistance during the intergalactic Orion Wars that took place. The Black League of Orion was a resistance pattern developed to counter the efforts of the dark Luciferian Orion Empire, which was attempting physical and spiritual domination of the entire region in context to these gridworks of consciousness. The Black League manifested not only as an underground paramilitary resistance group, but also as a spiritual and philosophical orientation that manifested in many forms in context to the ancient wisdom councils. And yet many thought that during this time that the Orion Black League were just like their oppressors, because they justified killing if necessary in the process of their resistance. And see, this is where the Star Wars chronicles actually come from, based on the Orion Wars conflict. And so with what this actually is, which is also why Star Wars is so fucking popular, it's because it's all playing on these codes of consciousness within the collective unconscious gridworks and the core wound of humanity itself. And in the allegory, the Empire attempted to dominate mentally, emotionally, and even devised their dark sorcerer's ways for mind control using the psychic arts and manipulation of consciousness to fear for all of their inverted agendas. And in context to the Jedi in this allegory, in script, they are the archetype of the real, the Jedi, in context to the Magi, Grail, Shaman. And so when the real, with all of this happened, there was a great spiritual avatar who came forth and started to awaken the Orion people, and who was one of the leaders in the Black League of Orion. And there are parts of the Orion system gridworks that have awakened and parts that are still trying to dominate. And that's what we deal with when it comes to the Orion stargates and gridworks of consciousness on the galactic spiral, who are also working in league with other factions in context to certain gridworks that are still trying to dominate other planetary systems, along with ours, that are located in the Orion system gridworks of consciousness and are the seat of the draconian reptilian gridworks of consciousness, as they work to recruit individuals for their dark Luciferian agendas. And is the exact same conflict over territories and ideologies that occur in our present world today. Again, the Black League of Orion was a resistance pattern of consciousness developed during the Orion conflict to counter efforts of the dark Luciferian Empire, who are led by the Lulitan family of the Thoth, Enki, Zeta, Zephylim, along with the Sathian family of the Marduk family bloodlines. And so they, also along with the necromitten fallen seraphim races of Andromeda, have ruled over the grid works of consciousness comprised in context to the 4th, 8th, and 11th pillars, coming in through Earth Stargate 10 in Samaria before what happened in Sakura, Egypt, long after humanity started incarnating on Earth. And it's these groups, these dark Luciferian motherfuckers, that are the collective group of the Akamoth, which again took a physical and spiritual domination over entire galactic regions of consciousness on the galactic spiral of creation, triangulating us into a feedback loop with what happened in context to the Orion Wars, also the destruction of Tiamat and Maldek on the solar spiral of creation. Now here is where I'm going to start bringing it all together. And further, the Orion Black League were also an alliance with highly evolved dragon lines that were among the ancient wisdom councils and the Magi Grail Shaman. They were known in Vedic terms as the Kumura. And it's as I've said, as I'm going to keep saying, that this is the pathwork of wolves and motherfucking dragons. Humans that were originally from Lyra managed to overcome what was happening during the Orion Wars and travel to Maldek before its destruction, and was the original home of the human race here in this sector of our galaxy, which was also originally inhabited by the ancient Syrians in context to Tiamat on the galactic spiral gridworks of consciousness when it came to the planetary sphere of Maldek. And it was these ancient Syrians who, again, were the Alpha in context to the ancient Nordic tradition that existed among the original humans. And it was the ancient Syrians who were the original progenitors and protectors of Maldek. And through several stages of evolution cycles, the plan was to generate a more dense physical body that was merged with the planetary consciousness core essence magnetism that is required in order to fully protect the planet. And this is what the Grail of consciousness is, in context to the universal planetary Templar complex. So in earlier stages of the evolution of the ancient Syrians, who embodied into Septician lines, they also incarnated into aquatic bodies akin to the dolphins and the whales here on Earth. But they were also fully human in context to the first and second seeding. But before the process of fully embodied essence into the physical incarnation was made possible, that is when the Draconians of Orion destroyed Maldek, exploding the planet into shattered fragments of consciousness, like I've said and like I've shared here in this segment, that were also compacted within the body of Earth before it was prepared for hosting life on its surface, after which that is when humanity started incarnating here on Earth on the solar spiral of creation, and is when the ancient wisdom councils were formed here in our reality field. So after the Electric Wars happened, which is another term for the Orion Wars, it was the Black League of Orion that were among the Magi Grail Shaman and were a part of the formation of the ancient wisdom councils here in our reality field after mankind started incarnating into Earth. And for a while, it worked. And individuals were allowed to incarnate to become partakers of the biospiritual regenesis, which was the original fucking point of coming to Earth after Maldek was destroyed during these wars. But see, though, it's the exact same conflict that rose up again and occurred in Atlantis over 26,000 years ago between the dark factions of the Sons of Belial, the Thothians, and the Brotherhood of the Snake, who worked to overthrow the ancient wisdom councils along with the Magi Grail Shaman, and was the event which first happened in Sakura, Egypt, which eventually led to the wars between Egypt and Samaria, and were the cause point for the wars that escalated the splitting apart of Pangaea into the Atlantean cataclysm, as we are navigating and breaking the chains over territories and stargates of consciousness on all three spirals of creation. And with all of this, again, it starts with you. Do you allow the shadow that is there within you rule you? Or are you going to choose to be a servant of truth no matter what? See, all you got to do is look into history to see the cause and effect of all of the fucking choices that our predecessors have fucking made. And you need to see both in order to integrate and truly transcend what is going on within you as an individual in context to all of this. Because listen, we are all still dealing with this. And ultimately, the seed of the Orion conflict is made between those who are going to develop complete reliance on AI, TI technology for gaining access to higher consciousness and immortality, and those who want to come into alignment with cosmic law and develop themselves spiritually by building in through their true core essence. And it's really starting to come to a head again because we are coming out of the fifth cycle. We are coming out of the Kali Yuga. And if you don't cleanse and purge and heal this shit the fuck out in a most destructive and disturbing manner, embracing all of it for what it is, being honest with yourself, not lying to yourself with what is actually going on here, knowing that it is the basis of the victim-victimizer mind control and psychotronic warfare that is used against us in our reality field, and is still being used to influence these traumatic war memories in humans within the unconscious, subconscious psyche of every single individual here on Earth. And without knowing the true history, and without these galactic memories and conscious mind awareness, are going to play out the same archetypal roles that have been hidden from human history. So again, the original purpose of incarnating on Earth was to become a partaker of the true biospiritual regenesis. And this is where the Universal Planetary Templar complex comes from. And right now, King Arthur and his knights of the Round Table are in stasis, so to speak. But these codes of consciousness have been definitely activated within myself and other people in my inner circle and other people in my network. And is all related to the Awakening Albion and the Universal Planetary Templar complex, the Grail of Consciousness and Excalibur, and is what is going to potentially unfold for our initiates with our mystery school when it comes to the blue flame healing arts and occult science. This is where I am taking things. So in our current quest for the Grail, one must realize that even though many have heard about this, that many don't truly know anything about what this actually means, or when it comes to the cycles of the Grail, which is one of the most important aspects when it comes to the symbolism of the occult. I've just gone deeper into decrypting the mystery for all of you that have the ear to hear what I am saying in this segment. We have discovered more of an interesting way of looking at the facts presenting themselves again now, and alluding to the overtone of the Grail quest of consciousness. It is to realize that this is going to be an individual search based upon the universal laws of metaphysics and the eternal axioms. It's not going to be given to you. You're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to quest for it. And in times past, there was no way of joining anything that was going to set the individual in trajectory to know thyself and eventually extract the Grail from within themselves. Even when it comes to all other schools of magic out there, there were no schools on this fucking level, which has been one of my main goals to create with the Blue Flame Healing Arts and Occult Science, which is going to be prerequisite initiation before getting into more advanced initiation when it comes to the magic order that is going to be coming forth again. For my personal quest for the Grail of Consciousness has been accessed. I've tapped into this, you guys, and I've extracted its secrets from within my codex with my personal path work, which is why I've done this segment here on Black Earth Productions and will declare that there is a place to gain support in this. It's to know that you're not alone, not just for the individual themselves, but potentially for others becoming the cause point for everything here in context to the ancestors, your blood codes, and soul code genetics and consciousness. And it's for those that seek to attain illumination of the psychosomatic northern soul complex. It is within this egg, within the egg of the white dragon, that consciousness will be forged in a way that has never been seen before. It is going to be your quest to make connection to your eternal core essence, the eternal song that is you in connection to the higher force. And the search has to be a personal dedication. And for those that have achieved the search and behold the Grail of consciousness, will become a company apart along with us, even though we are not fully organized yet. We are mutually knowing of one another because we have been working to attain the same levels of insight, and we are part of the level of internal illuminaries, which is designed to lead you as the individual to the dedication of your own search with this from within yourselves. A dedication which is part of the vow of knighthood, keeping the vigil of the Grail ever at the forefront of your conscious waking mind, spending your days in meditation with it in your rituals and at your altars of personal ritual, and dedicate yourselves internally through the voluntary action of your own will in connection to the higher. And take the quest. Say, I can assist you and I can show you what you have to work with as a mentor and way shower in formulation of the ancient wisdom counsels again. And ultimately, it's going to be you who attains this from within yourself. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fuck things up. And it's going to be very lonely at times. This journey from illusion into the true light. From the darkness of ignorance to the participation in eternal truth. And it's also to say that in times of aloneness, the actual power of the Grail is drawing you towards it. Because you as the individual are also going to have to call upon your own internal resources. You're going to have to train and dedicate and consecrate yourself to this path work. You are going to have to master both your weakness and your strength, taken forthwith with a vow to attain your highest potential and to embody the highest aspects of who you are, and slowly climb that mountain of self-mastery, which is at that place between the material and the spiritual, and forge yourselves in the fires of the Athanor, and allow yourselves to fully explore the records that are there within you, extracting them and actualizing them from within yourselves. For there are those in times past that have achieved this, having gone through the same process that you are now going to potentially come into. The transformation of all that is base into all that is sacred by embracing the great alchemical transmutation. And it's through dedication and action, through meditation, and sometimes even through supernatural experiences that cannot be refuted once the process takes you. It's like I've said to all of my initiates, once the process takes you, it's going to take you. For the quest of the Grail of consciousness is not for the faint of heart. It is for the pure in heart. For the miracles that we experience are not going to interfere with the workings of cosmic law, but are in fact in alignment with it. And we will have these experiences in attainment, a proof that the reality of all of this is nearer than it has been before. And so with this teaching, it was derived from the cultivation of the power of internal visualization. Or in other words, you as the individual are going to have to take these ideas, look into them deeper yourself, and gradually transform them into inner pictures and symbolism and symbol codes. And it's these symbol codes and archetypes of consciousness, which is everything to do with what you will start to access with the full pack initiation. And are visualizations of a superior state of mind and being. Visualizations that are going to compel you as the individual to fulfill them and achieve them, the mysteries of what they actually represent. I spent a lot of time putting this all together. And for those that want to inquire for initiation into the Blue Flame Healing Arts and Occult Science, to get a hold of me, send me an email at blackearthproductions@hotmail.com. And until next time, be empowered, be encouraged. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions.